Hey there, champ. Welcome to the Fight Site's Tengridome, episode 4. The most people don't know shit about boxing edition, as quoted by some random dweeb that watches a single boxing event per year, as well as random salty MMA fans that vehemently refuse to call boxers fighters. With a special shout out to all those people who write off elite fighters losing close fights against other elite fighters as bums. But yeah, plenty to talk about with regards to the fights that took place this weekend. But all in all, this was a fairly run-of-the-mill weekend in terms of a fight night card that with shitty prelims and a mediocre fight event, and boxing being up to its usual boxing bullshit. But yeah, this boxing card was particularly egregious with the way broadcasters went about broadcasting it. Because genuinely, the combination of the broadcasters treating everything outside the main event as a sideshow, constantly cutting off to shots of Lomachenko pacing around the locker room or Lopez brushing his teeth and going through his morning skincare routine every time there was something interesting going on the undercard. And the fucking asinine commentary that just didn't stop. It was well on its way to make the event borderline unwatchable for me. Which is no mean feat, because I've seen Bellator cards in their entirety. But yeah, Joe Tessitore just plain didn't shut the fuck up for one single minute. With the way he's been reminding us what the main event is actually going to be, you'd think that he was afraid that the audience of the event suffers from short-term memory loss. Check out my Twitter timeline to find out what a person descending into madness in real time actually looks like. Of particular note is the way they've been talking about the fight in the intermissions, with Tessitore talking to some other random guy who likes the sound of his voice way too much, talking something about Teofimo Lopez sharing a chilling message in the locker room, which prompted me to tweet out that the following skit where Joe Tessitore asks, "Yeah, Teofimo Lopez shared a chilling message with you in the locker room, didn't he?" And the other guy replies, "Yeah, he said his dad's a fucking asshole." Which is genuinely the full extent of all meaningful exchanges that took place during that skit, during that intermission. And I mean, Super Bowl of Boxing Dads. Super Bowl of Boxing Dads. Are you joking me? Like, you're shitting me. Is this real? I just sat there in front of my computer hearing that, and just I had to do a double take, because at the moment I was sipping on some coffee and just kind of zoned out a little. But yeah, if the goal was to bring my attention by making me extremely annoyed, then I suppose good effort, ESPN. Well done. Like, a short disclaimer, I don't usually watch boxing events in their entirety, or even the main cards in their entirety, because, like, with the way these things are produced, there's just you shouldn't bother. And this event, I don't know, like, are all ESPN events this egregious in terms of just absolute random bullshit going on? Like, this is a genuine question. What damn near drove me up the wall in particular was the CompuBox thing, where ESPN claimed that Teofimo Lopez is a particularly dangerous opponent to Lomachenko because, according to the CompuBox numbers that they've run back, they've come back, according to them, and watched and evaluated the entire career of Roberto Duran using CompuBox, and apparently, in comparison to Teofimo Lopez, his Power Punch Connect stat is way lower. To which my only answer would be that Roberto Duran has like 900 fights. Of course he's going to have a lower punch connect. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I mean, CompuBox is just some dude counting punches and pushing a button every time he sees a punch connect. And it's not an all-seeing, all-powerful, omniscient fucking artificial intelligence that's going to tell you what's happening during the fight and give you context for everything, because it's literally just some guy counting punches. It's not a reliable source of information. So the whole system is flawed, and the way they went about it is just bollocks. And don't you think for a moment that MMA actually let up on awful commentary, because Dan Hardy was just, I don't know if this was an off night for him, or this is just jet lag taking its root in his brain and scrambling everything, scrambling every thought that he might have. Like, I don't know if this is some kind of spell that took over all combat sports commentators, or maybe even all sports commentators. Because Dan Hardy also didn't shut the fuck up about whatever the fuck, and didn't talk about the goddamn fights that took place up until the main event. And even then, he insisted on prattling on about, I don't know, fucking Hannibal of Carthage. And apparently DC, Daniel Cormier, doesn't know who Hannibal of fucking Carthage actually fucking is. So all in all, just shocking stuff from every commentary booth today. I generally have a lot of gripes with commentary in combat sports, like, period. But today was like, it felt like combat sports like actually conspired to give me an aneurysm while I was watching the whole thing. The fights themselves also took on a particular theme that I found rather annoying, or rather funny, depending on how you look at it. Like, with all these events, with all fights, with all fight nights generally, you have cards generally take on a particular theme, which is something that Phil McKenzie of Heavy Hands would confirm. And today's theme was, by the way, the fights took place for me today, because that's just that's how time zones do be like that. But yeah, the theme today was people in open stance matchups struggling to set up their jabs. And in MMA, it was mostly to do with MMA fans being really bad at fundamental stuff. And with Lomachenko, it was more to do with the matchup in particular, and the things that Lopez was doing to limit Lomachenko's output. But we're going to get into that. But yeah, if you want to have... I'm sure that Danny and Sriram will go into detail concerning the Brian Ortega versus Korean Zombie fight. And if you want to closer look at the fight now, I suggest you go back and listen to the Fight Sites MMA podcast, where they essentially nailed every dynamic in the fight. Danny nailed the outcome of the fight with his Ortega pick, and Sriram nailed the fact that Ortega is going to jab Korean Zombie's face off. And I'm sure he's currently having a grand old time rubbing this fact into into the faces of people who doubted him or called him an idiot over this. Always good fun. Well, yeah, this may come as a surprise to you, but my actual job at the fight site is actually talk about the fights, which you may not have, you may not have got this idea if you listen to the previous 3 episodes. I suppose I went into some fight analysis in the 3rd episode, in the previous episode, where I talked about various conceptual things, like the divisional meta, etc., etc. But yeah, I've enjoyed the Lomachenko-Lopez fight way more than I enjoyed the UFC's Fight Night card, even with the ordered dumb bullshit. Christ, I'm still salty about that. I'm still salty about the fact that they've actually attempted to put Teofimo Lopez over Roberto Duran just to push the CompuBox thing. This is not a knock on Teofimo Lopez, though. He looked fantastic today. This is just ESPN being idiots and trying to sell this Moneyball thing to the ESPN audience in America, which I suppose is very succinctly illustrated in the fact that they have actually put out an ad that promoted some kind of razor, I suppose. It was a tack shaver ad right before the main event that they've been prattling on during the actual fights that took place before the main event, instead of talking about the actual fights that took place. But yeah, this fight created a bit of a divide amongst my colleagues with regards to the actual quality of the fight, because some of them got bored. And to some it seemed that Lomachenko threw away the fight, because to them, when Lomachenko actually started doing things, he instantly started winning, which I do not believe to be the case. And the other half saying that it was Lopez who caused Lomachenko's work rate to drop off a cliff. And to those that got bored, I would say that I'm sorry. Apparently, you just have the attention span of a goldfish. But yeah, no, actually, yeah, no, I actually love you guys. It was great fun talking to you about the fight. It's a bit of an inter-service rivalry we got going on between the various, I suppose, departments on the fight side, with the Muay Thai and MMA guys saying that boxing takes way too damn long, and that the fights should be shorter. Like, I personally do not belong to any one department. Well, I am technically under the MMA umbrella, but I just watch whatever the fuck. I just enjoy everything. So I'm a bit of an outside observer to this dynamic. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting technical fundamental stuff to talk about in this fight, particularly the concepts of the old, incredibly, I suppose, like, almost cliched at this point concepts of fighting your fight, taking away a champion's A game, and limiting exchanges, defense in the pocket, defense up close, etc., etc., etc. Like, it was a running gag for a long while in the beginning, when Danny and Sreeram would record a podcast and they would do listener questions, and almost every episode they had to answer the question of who, in their opinion, is the best pocket boxer in MMA, and how do you go about defense in the pocket and limiting exchanges. And I would assume that it got tiresome rather quickly. Right, let's get on with it, shall we? The bottom line with this fight is Lopez essentially prevented Lomachenko from snowballing into implementing his usual A game, which is pressure boxing and volume. Like, there's this fairly prevalent narrative that Lomachenko is a defensive genius and a slickster. And he's extremely slick, don't get me wrong, but he's also incredibly aggressive, and this is what... This style of fighting is what allows him to build up reads extremely quickly, with extreme efficiency. Which is something that I think I've talked about in the previous episodes, in that pressuring cuts the time you need to make reads in half, because you're the one who's creating the whole... You're the one who's making things happen. And Lomachenko is generally extremely active on the front foot, way more active on the front foot than on the back foot, and generally way more effective on the front foot. Like, he did his usual foot feint combined with head slots thing, where he would dip to the side, dip to the other side, dip his head a little, maybe like do little hop steps to the side or forwards or backwards in order to figure out what his opponent is going to give him. And in this case, Lopez gave him the impression that if he's going to close the gap between them, with Lopez obviously being the bigger man with longer reach, he's going to get clattered. It may become more apparent on repeat viewings, but whenever Lomachenko did a little dip to the side, Lopez would take a slight angle back and also to the side. He would turn. When Lomachenko turned, he would turn with Lomachenko, and he would present a feint he would present a feint with his rear hand or his front or his lead hand, and take the same slight angles that Lomachenko would take, so that I'm actually standing trying to to show you what Lopez was doing against Lomachenko. So obviously you can't see me. But yeah, the bottom line is that Lopez mirrored Lomachenko's movements, and those looks that he showed him told Lomachenko that he's got no way in, and that he's going to go through some pretty big shots. He's going to have to go through some pretty big shots in order to get inside. And he was obviously very wary of Lopez's power from the outset. I mean, it's something that Lomachenko has been talking about for the longest time now, ever since he got to lightweight, that it's becoming increasingly difficult to implement his usual style against guys that are much bigger than him. And definitely Lopez looked like he was twice the size of Lomachenko in this fight. Not necessarily much taller, but obviously way more robust in his build. But yeah, Lomachenko is at his best when he's able to turn his opponent around, and go and circumvent his opponent's reach, and either go behind him or go way on the inside and attack from advantageous angles, and Lopez just plain didn't present him any. I presume that Lomachenko's game plan for this fight was to take the first two rounds to kind of build up reads and kind of take a little bit more than he usually does, take a little bit more time than he usually does in order to figure out his way into his effective range. But with the threat of the counters, with the threat of Lopez's big power, and with Lopez consistently presenting Lomachenko these threatening looks, he simply took way too damn long to actually get going. And by the point that he actually, you could see it in the look on his face, like by the third round and by the fourth round, and then especially in the fifth round, he looked extremely frustrated, because every time he tried to circumnavigate around Lopez's range, he got hit with stiff body shots, which is, by the way, very good on Lopez for doing that early on. Always a good idea. And the fact that Lopez himself went on the front foot in order to push Lomachenko back, and Lomachenko obviously turned out to be... Lomachenko is generally kind of way less potent on the back foot, but against a larger man with bigger power, he just basically couldn't get anything going. And when he wasn't pressuring, when he stood his ground in the center, when Lomachenko turned in order to find an angle, Lopez turned as well. He would consistently pivot at the same time with Lomachenko and present the threat of either a hook or an uppercut. The hook kept Lomachenko in front of him, while the uppercut prevented Lomachenko from changing levels and attacking the body for fear of getting dinged, basically. So, and his way more way more proactive lead handwork prevented Loma from opening up with jabs and throwaway shots. And some of these hooks and uppercuts that hit Loma on the gloves looked very heavy. Like, Lomachenko moved every time he got hit with those shots on his guard even. So that secured the idea for Lomachenko that closing the gap would be a very, very bad idea. Even though it was something that he absolutely had to do, and I believe he understood that. Like, he didn't just think, oh, I guess I'm just gonna let Lopez get... look, Teo, I'm just gonna give you a head start, okay? Out of... just in the name of good sportsmanship. Lomachenko is not stupid. He was just extremely wary. Funnily enough, if you go back and Google some of the seminars that Lomachenko did with a bunch of teenage boxers at some gym, I don't remember where it was or where it took place or when it took place exactly, but he was showing off the way he would pivot in order to get his own shots off while remaining defensively responsible, and he would pivot, and then this young fella pivoted with him, and Lomachenko went, yeah, obviously this would normally work unless you're a smarty pants like this guy here, and this is what Lopez did. And obviously those body shots stung Lomachenko very badly, and it's just Lomachenko has a great poker face, so it wasn't apparent. Maybe it wasn't apparent to some people that he was actually hurt, but there were subtle changes in his body language. Like, he would stiffen up, and kind of the more Lopez got off his body shots, the more Lomachenko looked uncomfortable in there. And maybe there was a certain sentiment in his camp that Lomachenko is absolutely going to drown Teofimo late, which is turned out to be a huge miscalculation on his part, on his camp's part. Because how are you going to drown your guy late if you've done nothing for the first stretch, for the first half, for the first entire half of the fight, essentially? You're not drowning your guy with volume late anytime soon, especially if you're the one getting peppered with body punches for the entire first half of the fight. And this miscalculation sort of kind of was exacerbated by Teofimo giving him the sort of data that he couldn't process fast enough. Especially, Lomachenko looked especially surprised with the way that the speed parity was what thrown him off very hard. What threw him off, rather. Like, he's obviously used to being the faster guy out of most boxers he's against most boxers he's matched up against. Most fighters. To trigger some staunch MMA guys out there. But yeah, Lomachenko didn't just started doing things. Didn't just start doing things, and that's why he's had success. It wasn't the case of him just deciding to go, and he was able to go. Lopez was obviously wasn't prepared for Lomachenko to start roughing him up on the inside. And Lomachenko genuinely started roughhousing him, much like he did with Linares and Campbell in his previous fights at lightweight, where he would shove them around, muscle them around, stamp on their feet, pull down on their neck, punch them from borderline illegal positions, and generally just doing crafty veteran stuff. So, to quote Hacks, with his who came out with his insight in the aftermath, that broadly speaking, Lopez was finding a lot of success in rather linear situations where, like, I jab, you stop from moving due to me jabbing, and then I jab again. But then Lomachenko starts hitting Lopez with sneakers on the break. He starts roughing him up on the clinch. He starts hitting him behind the ear with hooks from way up close, pulling on his neck, and generally upsetting his equilibrium and balance. and breaking his stance. And this sort of fight takes a different kind of instinct from a fighter, different sort of senses. You're relying way less on eyesight and prediction and more on stuff like tactile feeling and reactions, like slight dips in weight, slight rustling and movement around the sides, and from this distance, it's a given that you're going to shit to going to get you're going to shit. Well, some fighters that absolutely don't know how to fight on the inside are absolutely going to shit themselves. But yeah, you're going to get hit around the sides of your neck or shoulders, on your kidneys and weird spots like that. Or even up your armpits, which actually is a pretty painful thing to experience, or rather uncomfortable. So yeah, Lomachenko started roughing him up on the inside, and it got in his head that not in terms of breaking someone mentally, but it's secured a thought in his head that Lomachenko is. This is where Lomachenko is having his success, so he's consistently going to go on the inside, and this is where he's going to do his damage. And this is what I should look out for. And so Lomachenko and this is when Lomachenko started opening up with straights and backing him up consistently. Like most of the straight combinations that Lomachenko hit Lopez with was when Lopez was backing away in straight lines. And this is sort of the narrative of the fight. Like Lopez would push Lomachenko back in a straight line, and he would pepper him with body shots and hooks. And Lomachenko would back Lopez on a straight line, and he would pepper him with straights. And in the clinch, Lomachenko would pull on Lopez's neck where he could, and that would that threw his reactions off somewhat, because it's obviously an uncomfortable position to find yourself in. First of all. Second of all, someone putting pressure on your neck obviously is going to put your attention away from the fact that he's probably going to open up with a rather stiff shot. And attacks behind the ear cause ringing, and they upset your equilibrium and your balance. Your eyesight starts shaking. Like, I don't strictly recommend doing this, but it's like Bas Rutten said on in an interview somewhere, or I guess on Joe Rogan's podcast, I don't know. Like, try to kind of pat yourself behind the ear with the open palm and see what that does to your vision. Even the lightest touch behind the ears feels sort of unpleasant, doesn't it? And make that a hook with genuine bad intentions on it. Even up close, even without the hips turning. Even an arm punch behind the ear feels very upsetting, very unpleasant. And the way Lomachenko generally got inside was with the up jab. He wouldn't, there weren't many avenues for him to open up with a normal jab, so he had to kind of work around Lopez's arm in order to get there. It wasn't a very stinging shot, but it got the job done. But yeah, when Lomachenko backed Lopez up, my grandpa kept. I watched the fight with my grandpa, and my grandpa kept yelling that, "Yeah, hit him in the body. He's wide open. Hit him." And this is what some of the commentators were yelling. Like, one commentator just simply had it out for Loma. Like, Lopez at one point hit Lomachenko with a stiff low blow right to the nutsack, and he went, "That was a body shot. That was a body shot," and that was an empty arena. Like. The fight officials hear you loud and clear, so that was a bit unprofessional from him. And generally, the boxing is kind of like a sort of a mess these days, you know. Especially the scorecards, but we're going to get into that later. But yeah, Lomachenko had Lopez on the ropes, but the threat of the counters was still there. And the threat of the uppercuts in particular, so he might have done tons more damage to the body with Lopez on the ropes, but the way it looked to me is that Lopez, as I've pointed out, he looked for hook counters and uppercut counters from the start, and that made Loma hesitate, and it allowed Lopez to circle out and escape, and this is what prevented Lomachenko from really putting the hurt on him. So by pivoting with Lomachenko and moving with Lomachenko every time, Lopez cut off Lomachenko's exit routes to the sides, and so Loma had to go backwards, and had to concede space. And so most of his pivots for the first 6 rounds, as Kyle had pointed out, by Kyle I mean, of course, Kyle McLaughlin, the co-head honcho of our website, as he had pointed out, all those pivots are just basically posing. Like, this is what, yeah, I'm working, because he was out of punching range. Those pivots basically did nothing. It did present some looks, but it accomplished not a lot. And obviously, when Lomachenko was put on the ropes, all exit routes were cut off, and he was absolutely going to be hit with body shots, which he did a great job of rolling with by pulling his torso backwards, by trying to kind of like move with the shot while circling out, which lessened the sting somewhat, but it obviously still bothered him. So yeah, in the end, it's a bit of a 50-50 situation. Like, Lomachenko was a bit hesitant from the start, but that hesitation was exacerbated by Lopez doing exactly the right things in order to limit exchanges and limit Lomachenko's volume, using the threat of his power. It's sort of like a mix between Max Holloway versus Volkanovski 1 and 2 and Ferguson Gagey type situation. It's kind of a mix of both, if you want me to like provide a parallel. Lopez used the threat of his power to prevent Lomachenko from snowballing, and constantly kept taking advantageous angles and attacking Lomachenko's positioning in order to prevent Lomachenko from doing his thing, and obviously setting Lomachenko up for some big counters. And the Volkanovski-Holloway connection is that Lomachenko is obviously a big volume guy, and Lopez did well using a lot of feints to sort of neutral, to render Lomachenko very passive. And the Holloway Volkanovski 2 comparison comes in where with the adjustments that Lomachenko had to make in order to start winning some rounds. And as with Holloway, Lomachenko is way more looks way better when he's able to actually, get off his offense. Like, he's not a big, especially against Lopez, who's a much bigger puncher and much bigger in general. Looking for single clean shots is not the way to do that. Not the way to go about things. Like, some people, I've heard some people say that Usyk is a larger and therefore inferior Lomachenko, when in fact, I think out of the two, he is the much more complete, and in fact, somewhat superior boxer in terms of actual pure boxing, because he's able to actually go on the back foot and let off some stinging offense. He really hurts guys when he's on the back foot, and he even out-volumes guys when he's on the back foot, unlike Lomachenko. But yeah, this fight sort of got all of us thinking about Floyd Mayweather, because of the fact that Mayweather is a much more superior round winner than Lomachenko, which is sort of weird, because you'd think that with the way Lomachenko drowns people in volume, that should make him a more effective round winner, but this is kind of him brute forcing. This is a form of brute forcing your way through rounds. Like, Floyd would find specific moments in the fight where he would punctuate the fact that he's the one dictating the pace of the fight. He would punctuate the final seconds of every round with some stiff shots. He always knew where to put just enough effort to punctuate that he's the one, he's the one in charge. He was also a master at slowing people down, which is something that he did with Manny Pacquiao. As Kyle had pointed out, Floyd essentially won it in the first round. Like he landed one clean right hand early on, and that was essentially it. That was enough to dissuade Pacquiao. And this is sort of what happened with Lomachenko here. Like Lopez landed a few stiff body shots and some hefty hooks on his guard, and Lomachenko just went basically like, fucking hell, I don't want to get caught with these. Like, make no mistake, even though Lomachenko won big stretches of the second half, preventing Lomachenko from doing his thing for 6 entire rounds is extremely impressive. And even though the fight was fairly close, I still believe that Lopez should have gotten the nod. And I'm glad he did, in a sense. Because this fight revealed a lot of things about both fighters. First of all, that Lopez is a genuine pound-for-pound threat. Like, he's the real deal. Like, no mistake. And while Lomachenko poured it on from the 6th round onwards, and he won some rounds, in the final round there was a particular sequence where Lomachenko was trying to go for the finish, and Lopez retaliated with a quick 2 or 3 punches, 2 or 3 punch combination, and almost every shot basically sent Lomachenko flying. Like, Lomachenko has some beard on him, make no mistake. But yeah, if this fight was a 15-rounder, I can see Lopez just basically just going forward, bullying Lomachenko and banging him out late, and it would have been a really bad one. Because from what we've seen from Lomachenko, it takes a lot to actually put him out, so it would have been, even if Lopez didn't knock Lomachenko out, he would have taken a hellacious, life-altering beating. But yeah, even though I say that, I still think that the way Lopez went about this fight was the correct approach, because there's always a chance that if he started going off early on, that might have just woken Lomachenko up enough to make Lomachenko open the fuck up and kind of make Lopez lose those first few rounds, and that would have made Lopez blow his fuse early on, and just that was what would allow Lomachenko to actually drown him late. Lopez going off on him early, rather. But yeah, excellent fight, excellent performance from Lopez. Bit disappointing from Loma because, to quote the fight site's very own Felipe Pacioli Marchetti, always fucking fight your fight, always. Which is something he said in the aftermath of the Adesanya versus Costa fight. But that's what we talk about when we talk about taking away a fighter's A-game, don't we? And the effort that Lopez had to put into game planning and surviving Lomachenko in the second stretch of the fight, in the second half of the fight, just shows you just how difficult taking away someone's A-game can be, given a certain level of technical efficacy. But yeah, this was a fairly refreshing thing to cover, because with MMA, you kind of sometimes you get bored, because a lot of big championship fights turn out to be blowouts, because MMA is just weird like that. Like sometimes champions or contenders simply have like a big gaping glaring hole in their arsenal, and sometimes like it's a common occurrence that out of the two fighters, only one is actually thinking about the upcoming fight, and he's the only one who actually prepared for the thing. And with this, it was obvious that it was a clash of two game plans. And for the first stretch of the fight, the contender, well, he was the champion, but he was the challenger, because Lomachenko had more belts. Yeah, he was the one. Lopez was more effective at implementing his game plan early on, and that prevented Lomachenko from implementing his game plan effectively. He still had a lot of success. Lomachenko is a live dog when he gets into a fight. Well, yeah, all in all, the ending to this fight was somewhat marred by the absolute bullshit scorecards, like boxing is wont to do with almost every big fight these days, with an absolutely baffling scorecard from Lederman. I mean, sure, Lomachenko lost the first 6 rounds fair and square, but a 119 to 19 scorecard, to 109 scorecard, like what? What? And there was a bit of a controversy in the aftermath of the undercard, of some undercard fight, where a judge was caught staring at his phone while the fight was going on. Like, come on, dude. Like, you've got one job. Just watch the fucking fight. And this is what we have to deal with in combat sports. This is the people that decide the outcome of major events on the world stage. Just drives me up the wall, this stuff. And of course, as always, this brought the, like, whenever an elite fighter loses a close fight to another elite fighter, said elite fighter is always, people always come out saying that he's a bum, or that he was just a hype train, or that he's overrated. And like various other champions from with other belts, or like other contenders who are like, in boxing, it's these contenders are dime a dozen. The contenders that just generally fight like, I don't know, math teachers, English majors, mall cops, etc. And they go out, yeah, look at my record. I've got like 25 knockouts in the span of 6 months. And then you go on BoxRec and look at the names involved, and it's just some guys, just some random guys that found, like retail store clerks, like David Haney came out on Twitter saying that, like, I told you that Lomachenko was whack, and just fuck off. I mean, at least give Teofimo Lopez the credit of winning against the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. And he had to wade through some actual fire, through some actual adversity in order to get the nod in the decision. Well, I mean, the scorecards were bullshit, but it was a very close fight. Very competitive fight, rather. Like, Lopez is the one who actually stepped up and fought the fight and won the fight, and you're just sitting there trying to pile on haters from the clout that you've built up on the fighter that lost, the fighter that you didn't actually fight. Step in and beat him then if he's so whack. I just plain do not understand this mentality. Like, whenever a fighter beats someone, some people always jump out yelling that, oh, this guy's a bum. This guy can't do nothing. And even if you're rooting for the fighter that beat up the other fighter, you're devaluing his own win. You're devaluing your own fighter's win. like, what is this logic? Fucking fight fans, man. Yeah. Excellent fight. All the bullshit around it sort of muddled my overall impression. I'm a bit sad. I'm a bit sad and disappointed, not because Lomachenko lost necessarily, but because of the fact that this fight is very unlikely to actually get a rematch, because there was no rematch clause in the contract, and Lomachenko has been talking about being way too small for the weight class for the longest time, and Lopez also wanted to move up for the good old while now. because Lopez is a big chunky boy, and all the seeds of an all-time banger of a rematch are there. But with the way boxing works, it's probably never going to happen. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, Lomachenko could go back to the drawing board, and just figure, oh, I'm fucking him up on the inside. I should just go on the inside from the offset and just going to get in there and fuck him up. And Lopez would also realize that, given that he's a smart boy, and he's going to go, oh, yeah, I'm going to go on the back foot a little bit and counter him to prevent him from going on the inside, and it's going to be even more interesting. The second fight promises to be even more interesting than the first one, in terms of the various tactical adjustments tactical and strategic adjustments that both fighters are going to make, presumably. Yeah, and this is what I meant by saying that the fight was competitive. Like, there's a clear distinction between a close fight and a competitive fight, because a competitive fight implies that one of the fighters made the other fighter work for his success. And a close fight is a fight that could go either way. And kind of thinking back on it, I don't think it does. This fight doesn't really swing back and forth, because Lomachenko's combos didn't really put much of a dent in Lopez. Like, he wasn't there were some rough spots for him, but he didn't look like he's going to go out at any moment. And whenever Lopez landed, Lomachenko, as I've said, almost went flying. Like, he got moved even by glancing shots to his guard, and that's generally a very bad sign. And at the end, he got caught with some hooks and uppercuts that turned his head around, and I was genuinely surprised that Lomachenko wasn't actually put on his ass by some of them. Well, yeah, banger, especially the second half. And I would really very much like to see a rematch, and it's probably never going to happen. And that just bums me out, you know. Boxing bums me out, and combat sports in general bum me out, but with boxing it's kind of it's sort of more egregious because of all the shady business that's going on in the background. That is not to say that boxing is somehow worse than MMA at this sort of thing. MMA is a different sort of shady. It's a different sort of dirty. I think MMA is well on its way to become about equal with boxing in terms of being dirty and shady. It's just that at least the production values are somewhat higher. At least some commentators are somewhat good, and so sometimes they talk about the actual fights that happen. And, the pacing isn't as bad. You don't have to wait 48 hours. Don't have to wade your way through 48 hours of the commentary booth jerking themselves raw over the fact that the main event is going to be on soon. And this is what generally turns people away from boxing. Like, I complain all the time about MMA fans not branching out more, not broadening their horizons, and actually watching the actual combat sports that make up the mixed martial arts of the mixed martial arts. But with the way this event has been presented, I genuinely don't blame at least some of them. At least those who try and give it a shot, and then they're faced with this impenetrable wall of absolute bollocks dangling in their faces. Of course I would rather stick to what is comfortable to me. Or at least stick to what doesn't make me want to kill myself and put a power drill through my skull. By the way, ESPN, we ran a CompuBox on Duran's career. Yeah, how about you run a power drill up your fucking nutsack? How about that, huh? Christ, I'm still mad about this. This is bullshit. Fuck you, ESPN. Super Battle of Boxing, that's my fucking taint. Like, I'm so glad that my grandpa doesn't understand English, because if he actually understood what was being said, he would basically just put his fist through my monitor. Like, if you think I'm volatile and somewhat cranky, you haven't met my granddad. Yeah, I've meant to put Q&A sections at the end of my podcast, but this turned out to be... This is already running, going to run past the 60-minute mark, I reckon. Maybe the 50-minute mark, once I edited it somewhat down. And there was a particular topic that I actually wanted to talk about before I've actually watched the fights, but various life stuff got in the way, so I couldn't put it out on time. So I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to push it back maybe a week or two, because obviously the Gage versus Khabib fight is next, and I kind of want to talk about it as well. We'll see. The topic I've actually wanted to talk about was brought on by the race panel that Ed Gallo recently hosted with Curtis Blades, Shana Dobson, Sidney Outlaw, and Bradley Desir, where they discussed their personal experiences being black in MMA. It was a fascinating discussion, and I wholly recommend everyone to listen to it if you want to broaden the scope of your understanding on the various issues in combat sports and in life in general. Some fucking idiots got mad that didn't challenge the viewpoint, quote unquote, that these fighters presented. Fucking viewpoint. I'd assume that they wanted the white guy to demolish the black guys with facts and logic. I mean, just fuck off. And I tried promoting this race panel on my VK page. VK is, to those who don't know, is basically Russian Facebook, and I got a ton of personal hate in my DMs, and just I had to zone out to filter it, all the shit. Like, there was some guy who went like, yeah, I'm a bit skeptical when it comes to the experiences of minorities because of what they say, because it's generally just them trying to clamor for attention. And I've clicked on his page and I looked at his subscriptions, the various public pages that he follows on VK, and one of them was the public page for Donald Trump. I went like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that why you would be somewhat skeptical when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, if you missed it, go back and watch it on our channel. There's a whole lot of topics I want to discuss, and it's going to take way more than a couple of episodes than I've originally presumed. I'm not going to say what they are, because there might be a chance that I would not be able to get to them anytime soon with all the big fights that are happening currently. So yeah, stay tuned. Check out Hyperfly for all your grappling and combat sports needs. Sign up with Bovada, which provides a $250 bonus when you first sign. Please bet responsibly. And check out ExpressVPN, because protecting your privacy in these modern times is extremely important, especially with all the social media accounts that people currently have. And of course, check out thefightsite.com, your one-stop shop for all things combat. Recently, Seth Pitara has been putting out previews and breakdowns for the Russian wrestling nationals, Russian men's freestyle wrestling nationals. Check them out if you want to get into wrestling. Might be as good a place to start as any. I might not have got as deep as I wanted to with this post-fight breakdown, but I'm sure my colleagues are going to put something out. I'm sure. I know for a fact that Phil is writing something with regards to the things that Lopez did. So stay tuned for that. I think Taylor is going to have some insights on the fight as well. Check their Twitter pages. Follow them both on Twitter at ASAP Pipa and Taylor on Sport. I might do a quick bonus follow-up on some of the concepts that I didn't get to discuss on this episode. I really want to, but it's now it sort of slipped my mind a little while I was talking about the actual fight. But anyway, time to wrap up. Time to wrap this up. Hope you all enjoyed my brief foray into actual fight analysis for once. And I'll see you later. Tähän, osatra verte.